Hola mi gente, ¿qué tal? We're going to jump right into continuing the planting around the fountain project, el proyecto de sembrar unas plantas alrededor de la fuente. Ya hicimos las 4 curly kale and pansy mixture plants, so we're going to continue on with the plants that I'm going to put in between those bigger pots. I've already prepared 4 smaller containers with the compost mixture, and we're going to add in some potting mix to those. We're just going to do 4 of those, just like we did 4 of the bigger curly kale and pansy containers. When you have both soil mixtures in your pot, you want to make sure you mix them well, incorporate them well together in your pot. And I'm adding a sprinkling of our fertilizer, Biotone. And then I just want to push the soil against the sides of the pot to make a little well and create a little space for the dusty miller to go in. I like to make sure that the roots aren't too bound up in the pot. Like I said before in the previous video, we had these plants for a couple weeks after Hurricane Ian. So they spent a little time in their nursery pots, and I didn't want them to be too root bound. So I broke any up if that was necessary. After I placed each plant in the container, I wanted to add in a little bit more of the container mix just to make sure that each root ball had enough soil covering them so they wouldn't dry out and they would absorb water and nutrients. So I just continue the same process until I have all 4 containers lista para poner alrededor de la fuente. Solo hice 4 en ese proyecto. El próximo año creo que voy a hacer más, dependiendo en cómo se mira este look. So now that we have our 4 dusty millers ready to go, we're going to do a little shimmy and move on to the next step. I'm using my husband's dolly or hand truck, however you want to call it, and I just placed some pallet wood pieces that I had laying around to carry the 4 heavier pots, and then I'll come back for those dusty millers smaller pots. And as I'm rolling away here with the hand truck, I noticed that my little garden helper thought maybe he needed to sweep, but he got caught up on the push broom there. He was just trying to be helpful. That's my Charlie. And here's Eric, my husband, trying to attack this pile that we've had outside in the front for a while, making some room for something pretty to go there. Wasn't this day glorious? It was about 65 degrees outside and the sun was shining, not a cloud in the sky. It was just the perfect fall day. Perfect for gardening and getting any other tasks done outside. And of course, tagging along, Mr. Charlie wanted to go for a ride. Such the eager helper, that one. So real quick, les quiero enseñar a dónde vamos a estar trabajando. Esta es la fuente que tenemos al frente de la casa. Y aquí tengo unas plantas que se llaman salvia planted. I wanted to get those out of the ground before I planted the pot containers that we previously completed. And also get all these weeds out of here. It's been a little while since I worked on this area, so I kind of let it go. But as it were, things happen. And of course, I have these little friends over here that we have to tackle and get out of this area as well. And as you can see, the grass was creeping in between those pavers and getting into the rocks. So we had to take care of those as well before I could continue on with the project. So before I get anything inside the rock bed here, I wanted to just locate the placement and make sure I was happy with the placement. A ver cómo van a ir estas plantas ahí, se van a mirar bien, cómo las coloco. Y antes de ponerlas en la tierra, tenemos que mirar si nos gusta. Solo hice 4 de las grandes y 4 de las chiquitas. Y estoy localizando las chiquitas en medio de las grandes. I think they are going to look pretty good like this. I like the design and we're going to get them in the ground. ¿Cómo se miran a ustedes? ¿Cómo les parece? Y aquí Charlie encontró una amiguita, una mariposita amarilla. The more plants that I have growing around the house, more and more pollinators are coming to visit, which is always a good thing. You want butterflies and hummingbirds around to pollinate your plants. And of course, it provides some nectar for them as well. I always think it's good luck when I see a butterfly in my garden. And yellow butterflies are supposed to symbolize hope and happiness, is what a quick Google search revealed. So I welcome them any time of the day. So what I'm doing for the pot in pot technique is digging a hole in the rocks and underneath the soil, large enough to hold and accommodate that larger first planter that's going in. So this is the one that's going to stay in this flower bed permanently, and the pot that the flowers are actually in, that one I'm going to change seasonally. Well, that's my plan anyway. So I encountered a large garden staple. I encountered the fabric cloth from my previous flower bed that I had in here a couple years ago. We never removed it. We just added more rocks on top of what was existing there already, and then encircled this flower bed with those larger stones to kind of make it look a little bit more formal. And then we added more rocks to this flower bed as well. So I'm just testing to make sure that my hole is large enough, and it looks like I need to go a little bit deeper. So that's what we're gonna do. And then once I have my hole large enough, then we'll move on to the next larger planter. This area was kind of awkward to use this shovel in. I should have gotten a smaller shovel or a garden spade, but I just used my hands to get some of the soil out and placed it on top of the shovel until I made my hole large enough to fit that pot. Isn't this just a nursery pot too? I found that this was going to be the least expensive way to go, since I am going to just be burying these and you're not going to be seeing them at all. I just decided to use nursery containers for this project, as it was the least expensive route to use. And there you have it. Once I have that first pot buried and it's at the height that matches those outer pavers, I'm going to go ahead and put the nursery container that has the plants in them inside that first pot, and then just move the larger rocks all the way around the pot to hide any evidence of there being a pot in the ground. So this method allows you to change out plants and flowers with the seasons changing, and it's so easy. You just have to pop out that top planter, put your new flowers in, and you have a new look to your garden bed depending on what's in season. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one, and this time I got the aid of some 5-gallon buckets to make the job a little bit easier. So we'll do the first larger planters first, and then I'll move on to the smaller dusty millers that are planted in between the pansies and cabbage. Some of these holes that I'm digging were holes where I previously had salvia, or before that I had some lavender, I believe. Both of those plants did not like this area at all, even though I know it's surrounded by rocks, and lavender does like to grow in a more Mediterranean type climate where, you know, it's not given a lot of fertilizer at all. Lavender doesn't like food at all. It just likes to be in poor soil, well draining soil. So I thought this was the case, but unfortunately that lavender did not take in this area. But I had filled it with some garden soil around the area that I planted it in. However, again, it just did not do well. Neither did the salvia here. So I'm digging out the rocks first, and then underneath the rocks I ran into the dirt that I had in there from those previous plantings. So I have to remove all of that and then get my nursery pot in. So for the smaller containers with the Dusty Miller, I did the same process of moving the rocks and creating an opening for the smaller containers. But this one was way easier than those larger containers, so it went a lot faster. Same process though, just creating a little well and putting the containers in its place. So once I created my well and I was satisfied with the placement of each container, I went ahead and backfilled con todas esas piedras, solo las puse alrededor de la plantita, de la maceta. Y cuando terminé, you couldn't even tell it there was a pot there. The rocks just did a perfect job at surrounding each pot that I placed. It was such a perfect method to try in this flower bed, and I think I like the way that it turned out. What do y'all think? I think I was successful at achieving this goal and completing this task, adding some color around this fountain for winter interest. Like I've said before, our winters are very mild here, so I expect these plants to survive right on through spring, and I'm hoping that I can remove the pansies and put them in a shady spot in the garden, in the backyard, and hopefully they survive into next fall. We'll see though. You'll have to stay tuned for that. So lastly, what I'm going to do is blow off all the grass clippings and all the weeds that I pulled from this flower bed before we got started, and clean up this area and make it nice and tidy, just buttoning up this project. Y aquí las tenemos. ¿Qué les parecen a ustedes? A mí me encantó hacer este proyecto y creo que al final logré mi meta de tener un poco de color para el invierno alrededor de esta fuente. Creo que esas plantas van a vivir aquí todo el invierno porque aquí en South Carolina del Sur no se pone tan frío en el invierno. Y si le doy un poco de agua cada semana o cada otra semana a esas plantitas, me van a durar. Ok, hasta la próxima. Nos vemos. Chao.